We back. Malcolm, this next joint, this is from one of those animated channels.
Hey, the other one's out.
Yeah. So this is the Netflix series that was also scary for adults, Adult James. Now they making fun of my fucking show, The Dark Crystal.
Yeah.
They making fun of it, man. I saw it on the thumbnail already, and Malcolm refused to watch that shit just because he said the puppets look fucking weird, man. I just can't do it.
I can't get through it. I can't. I want to watch the second one.
I fucked with the Dark
one
Crystal.
on Netflix, but
Yeah.
like, it's just like every time I like go past it, I'm like, yeah,
It's good, man.
I might sit down one of these days.
It's
I
good,
guess.
man. I promise it's good. But let's see. Start at 3, 2, 1.
And publish. A 23-minute-long movie review about an 80s puppet movie sure is different than the content I usually post. And even though it was a lot of work, it was fun to try something new, and I think the video turned out pretty good. Am I right, Chamberlain Funko Pop? Well, it's a good thing I'll never, ever have to worry about this franchise ever again. Are you sure about that? When I made a review about a cult classic puppet movie that came out 35 years ago, the last thing I was expecting was that said franchise would get a reboot announced 2 weeks after I posted. And every single day since then, people have been tweeting at me saying, "Hey James, did you know Netflix is making a Dark Crystal series?" Yes, I know. Do you know who you're talking to? If you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, then I recommend you watch my video, The Movie That Was Too Scary for Baby James. In that video, I reviewed a scary kids movie called The Dark Crystal. The movie was more or less a passion project of Jim Henson, the creator of the Muppets, and so this movie was done entirely with puppets. It came out before I was born, but I still somehow watched it and got scarred for life. In my review, I said some good things about the movie, like I thought it was a very creative and artistic film, but I also said some negative things about it too. As YouTubers, sometimes we forget that our videos are public and can be viewed by anyone. And when we talk about companies, we can forget that real people are attached to those properties who have poured hundreds of hours into these projects, and there's a chance they'll see our videos. And unbeknownst to me, Lisa Henson, current CEO of the Henson Company, saw my video. And for some reason, I never considered that was ever going to happen. If I had known that Lisa frickin' Henson was going to watch my video, I probably would have worded a few things differently.
Yeah,
I don't
was
think
that
she
bad?
was too mad at my video though.
I need to watch it,
she invited
dude.
me to tour the Henson office, and I got to see a real-life Skeksis puppet, which
scared the
resurfaced
shit
an
out of you.
unhealthy amount of repressed memories, and I got to meet some of the puppeteers, which was a whole lot of fun. Also, before Age of Resistance was released, I got contacted by Netflix, and they invited me and some other Dark Crystal fans to an early screening of the first 2 episodes, and I signed a non-disclosure agreement so I couldn't spoil anything. I don't remember when that NDA said I was allowed to talk about it again, but hopefully I'm in the clear. When I was in the early
happened
screening,
at
I just
the
remember thinking
show.
about how cool that these characters in this world were back on the big screen. Netflix has a pretty big screen, and the puppetry and cinematography have only gotten better. And the fact that 95% of everything was done with practical effects and puppets, it's beautiful. There's not a single human in this series, except in episode 10 when this puppeteer's head can be seen for a couple frames. I just checked and they actually took it out, so
I didn't even see that.
I still saw it. So much time and care and hard work was put into this series that there was a documentary made about how hard it was to make this series. If any of you are wondering, no, Rayunip does not make an appearance in Age of Resistance, nor is there a naked baby Jen puppet. Also, if you're worried that the show wasn't going to be as dark and scary as the original,
It definitely is.
don't worry. It's darker and scarier than the original.
It is.
The
It's
Netflix
one
family
part of it
Twitter
that's kinda
account was
fucked
nice
up,
enough
bro.
to timestamp every scary part in the series, and as you can see, stuff goes down in episode 10. Surprisingly though, they didn't blacklist the scene of the Skeksis peeing out of 3 different pee streams in episode 6 at 28 minutes and 41 seconds.
It happened.
Really makes you think. So artistically, this series is beautiful, and it needs to do well because it's left open for a season 2, and I want a season 2 to get greenlit. I'm not gonna do a plot summary of the whole thing like I did in the first review because I don't want this video to be an hour long, and you should watch it for yourself. I'm not just gonna do everything for you, I'm not your mom. But there are some things you should know before you go watching the series. This is kinda spoilery, but I won't spoil that much. So this alien planet is home to these creatures called gelflings. They can share memories with each other by holding hands, and the girl gelflings have wings. There's also this other creature called Agura, who's been around since the beginning of the world. She's basically Yoda's sassy grandma. And then out of nowhere, these tree aliens visit. Stay with me here, and they crack this very important crystal, and in doing so, they split into 2 different creatures. Their goodness becomes this thing called a mystic, who are dumb, and their bad side become these cool bird monsters called Skeksis, and then the Skeksis took over the entire world, so whoops. None of this is explained in the original movie, and it's not explained in the series until episode 7, but I think that the tree alien backstory should have started the series, which is why I just spoiled it for you. The original 90-minute film already had so much lore, and this new Netflix reboot just added even more lore? There's even a character named Lore? How much lore is there? Speaking of names, there are a lot of made-up words in this series, and sometimes those made-up words are hard to remember. Within the first minute of Age of Resistance, the narrator tells us that there are 7 clans of Gelfling, but then only names 3 because there are only 3 important ones that we should care about. I don't even know the names of the other 4 clans, and I'm like a Dark Crystal aficionado. Also, there are like 10 evil bird monsters, all with names like Skekso, Skeksil, Skektek, and Shrek. Granted, most of the time they go by their more common names like Chamberlain or the Emperor, but gosh dang it, I can't even remember some of those names. That's the pussy one, and that's the one that made that weird face in the original movie, and that's the one whose voice does not sound like a Skeksis at all.
Now, what vexes you, child?
Another thing you should know is that I thought this series was pretty slow. Maybe it's because I'm impatient or I'm used to watching YouTube videos at 2 times speeds exclusively, but do you remember in the original movie how there was a scene where the Skeksis ate dinner for 2 whole minutes, and visually it was amazing, but the whole time you're thinking, yeah, I get it. Well, there are a lot of scenes like that in the series. Let's take the beginning of episode 2, for example. It starts with a character we've never seen before waking up and putting on his shoes and making porridge and then spilling the porridge on his shirt and brushing his hair, then roughing it up.
It's puppet work, man.
Then grabbing his cleaning supplies. And it's just a whole minute of this unnamed character getting ready for his day. It's just so poor. Just cut it, please. And it wouldn't be that bad if this was the only example, but trust me, there are plenty of examples. I just don't want to spoil any of them for you. Turning a 90-minute movie into a 9-hour TV series, you're going to have some filler or some scenes that don't necessarily drive the plot forward. I get that. Luckily, I found this Chrome plugin that lets you watch Netflix at 2 times speed, so
it's all good.
Making this video is about prequels and how tricky they are to do right. In the original movie, there are only 2 Gelflings left in the entire world. So a prequel that sets up a world with 7 different Gelfling clans, we as an audience know that something's gonna happen, and it ain't gonna look good for the Gelfling. The series also added this MacGuffin Halo sword looking thing that was supposed to save the world, but the whole time watching that I kept thinking, no, that's not how the world is saved. The world's not saved until 1982. Also, there are certain characters that we know can't die because they're in the original movie, but boy does this show make you think some OG characters are gonna die. It almost makes me wish that the writers used the 80s Dark Crystal movie as inspiration and rebooted this series in its own separate universe. Movie reviewers tend to focus a lot on the negatives, and I don't want to come off as a hater because I really did enjoy this series and I want a season 2 to get made, so let's end this video with some of the things I liked about this series. I like that we got to see the Skeksis with more personality because they were always so over the top evil. The Hunter Skeksis was just on a whole new level of cool. All the other Skeksis never came across as threatening. Like look how slow they walk. I could beat them up. But the Hunter Skeksis, oh man, he was awesome. Do you think he'll be my friend? I like that this series didn't tone down the darkness, and if anything, they amplified it. Because everyone like me should have a deep-seated fear of puppets. There are some great nods to the original Dark Crystal, like when the Emperor Skeksis says,
I will never be dust!
but we we all know that's the very first thing he does in the original.
Damn.
Celadon is a piece of garbage and does not deserve a redemption arc. The voice
Damn.
acting is amazing. There are a lot of talented people voicing these characters, like Luke Skywalker. A YouTuber named Barnaby Dixon, who made these very cool mantis finger puppets, got to
Mark
work on
Hamill's
a
in it,
scene
Malcolm.
where the puppets put on
Gotta
a
watch it
mini
now.
puppet show. And that was everything I liked about Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. So, in conclusion, if you have 9 hours of free time, download the Video Speed Controller plugin, set that bad boy to, and save yourself 4.5 hours. Do watch Age of Resistance. Also, executives, if you still need someone to play Rayunip, hello. Hey.
Hey.
Good morning, everyone.
Buddy.
If you're wondering if this is a sponsored video, it's not. I just thought it was very weird that I made a video about a movie that came out 35 years ago, and then a year later Netflix rebooted it. Isn't that just a crazy world we live in?
Yeah, at least you got on your
And
ass.
also, I wasn't exaggerating when I said people would tweet me this news.
Oh, that's funny.
If you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button.
Ding ding.
Also, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever the hell you celebrate. All that
Robotica,
shit
whatever the
coming
fuck
up.
you celebrate.
Robotica.
Yeah, Robotica.
One of those robosexuals. But anyway, this is the DADS Podcast. Make sure to follow us on all our social media networks, DADS Podcast, except for Twitter, 2DADS with
With
Dreads.
Dreads.
And we out this bitch. Also, reminder, we are off for Christmas, so have a good holiday. And
Yeah,
also,
enjoy
hit
yourselves.
subscribe, the bell, and also share and like button and everything else. Get your people out to us and get us out to your people. Peace out.